When you think of Giza in Egypt, you think of the 3 big pyramids. But did you know there was a golden tomb buried underneath the plateau that hid funerary remains of an ancient Egyptian for over 4,000 years? This is the story of the tomb of Queen Hetepheres. To begin this tale, we must travel back in time to Cairo, February 2nd, 1925. With the discovery of King Tut's tomb just 3 years prior, the world was thrown into Egyptomania and tourism was on the rise, especially for travelers heading to the Valley of the Kings to watch Howard Carter at work as he and his team carefully documented, studied, and removed treasures from the boy king's final resting place. The country was alive and bustling, and the hope of finding the next golden treasures of ancient Egypt was very strong among archaeologists. And while the Giza Plateau was filled with all of this amazing, valuable knowledge for academics and Egyptologists wanting to further understand the workings of the Old Kingdom, no one was really expecting to find anything that the average person would call treasure. Enter a photographer named Muhammad Ibrahim, an already accomplished archaeological photographer working with an American team of archaeologists led by George Reisner, funded by the Harvard University and the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. On that fateful February day in 1925, he was looking for a suitable place to take pictures facing the east side of Khufu's Great Pyramid when a leg of his camera tripod slipped and sunk into an unusual plastered-covered crevice in the rock. Upon further inspection, this strange hole in the earth led to a staircase and a shaft filled with rubble and more plaster. Reisner was in the US at the time, but over the next month, the stairway and the shaft were cleared out, and on March 8th, the very first view of what Howard Carter would have called wonderful things appeared, as Alan Rowe, the deputy director of the excavation, opened for the very first time the burial chamber of Queen Hetepheres, the mother of the pharaoh Khufu, famous for building the Great Pyramid of Giza, of course, and she was likely also the wife of the pharaoh Senefru, though they didn't know this at the time. Inside, the room was filled with gold plates and gilded furniture that was once there, and it was clear that this burial had been found at one point and disturbed in antiquity, as there were smashed ceramics and linen just kind of strewn about the room. Reisner ordered the chamber to be closed on March 12th until he returned to Egypt the next year. So that means everyone had to wait until January 21st, 1926, with what I can only imagine as unrestrained excitement and anxiety for it to be opened. Now, Reisner knew how important a discovery like this was, so he and his team were meticulous in his excavation and documentation, which we largely have Egyptologist Dow's Dunham to thank for his, again, meticulous record keeping. The whole operation took 321 days to complete and was no walk in the park. The chamber was packed tight with artifacts, and it turned out to be quite a dangerous workplace. A stone even fell down from the ceiling once, and Dunham only made it out unharmed because he was wearing a helmet. Archaeology is a risky game, my friends. Always wear the recommended PPE. The tomb had no chapel or superstructure to identify who this burial chamber belonged to, but luckily, one of the finds inside was able to give us the name. We'll get into the rest of the contents in a minute, but one of the finest pieces of furniture found in the tomb was a carrying chair. It had originally been made of ebony and cedar, but the wood had all decayed. But fortunately for us though, the back had been decorated with inlaid gold hieroglyphs that had fallen to the floor of the tomb. And it was from these that the archaeologists were able to identify the burial as that of Queen Hetepheres. After everything was said and done and the chamber was cleared out, there were a total of 1,701 manuscript pages of plans and notes and 1,057 photographs of this very small tiny room. There was so much detail recorded that Reisner went as far as to make the very bold claim that from all of these records, it would be possible to replace every single object just as it was when they found it. Very bold. By March 3rd, 1927, the entire chamber had been cleared out, and then, the moment that everyone had been waiting for was finally upon them. It was time to open the great alabaster sarcophagus that lay inside. This was meant to be a momentous occasion. The who's who of society were all present and very eager to see the queen and to learn what lay inside. We have an account from one Lord Smith, who was present at the opening of the sarcophagus. And he wrote, "When the lid was lifted high enough for me to look inside, I saw to my great dismay that the queen was not inside. The sarcophagus was empty. I turned to Reisner and said, in a louder voice than I intended, 'George, it's a dud.' Then the Minister of Public Works asked, 'What is a dud?' Reisner rose from his box and said, 'Gentlemen, I'm afraid Queen Hetepheres will not grant an audience.' Then he added, 'Mrs. Reisner will serve refreshments in the camp.' Well, that is quite disappointing. Also, I don't know how I feel about Mrs. Reisner not being present at the opening and being busy making snacks for the men, but maybe she just wasn't into all that stuff, and in that case, you go, girl. So to keep this chronological timeline going and to give you the full picture of the clearing of this small tomb, the 2.2-ton sarcophagus was removed on April 18th, 1927, and then on May 21st, the walled niche that contained an intact canopic chest was opened. After all that, it took 25 years of reconstruction work for the entire findings to be published. Good things really do take time. I would also love to quickly point out that removing items from this burial chamber was no easy feat. The staircase at the top only went down 3.4 meters, but then the shaft measures a whopping 27 meters down before it reached the burial chamber. So not only would it have been an effort to get things inside, getting it all back out again would have also been, again, no small feat. Now for the good stuff. Let's look at all of the wondrous, beautiful things that once belonged to Queen Hetepheres and were buried with her to have for all eternity. We have a gorgeous mix of items dating from throughout her life, both as wife to King Senefru and as the king's mother later on. Plus, of course, some things that were made specifically for the tomb. Aside from the uninscribed alabaster sarcophagus and canopic chest that held her organs, Hetepheres was buried with some very classy, very shiny things. Firstly, her golden bed with its feet carved into lion's legs. Everything apart from the feet and the area that one would have laid on was covered completely in gold leaf. The head of the bed was elevated on an incline for the queen's comfort while using the traditional ancient Egyptian neck pillow, also covered with gold and silver, and stored in a golden box, mind you. And the bed also had a footboard installed, decorated with inlaid blue, green, and black feathers and rosettes. This was to prevent her from sliding off on that incline while she rested. Speaking of a good night's sleep, this video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. I'm currently working on my second book, and while I can't tell you anything about that yet, something I've been making sure to prioritize as part of my busy schedule of making videos, work, and writing is my sleep. Even though we have blackout curtains in the bedroom, those pesky rays of the sun still seep through and wake me up earlier than I need. But with Manta Sleep's 100% blackout sleep masks, I don't have that problem anymore. I've been testing out their silk mask, which is made from 100% pure 30 mom silk and prevents wrinkles and fine lines because, let's be honest, I'm not getting any younger here. And I believe Queen Hetepheres would definitely approve of this luxurious choice given her attention to detail on her bed. And I will say, I do definitely feel like a queen having woken up so well rested without any marks from this mask on my face. It's super comfortable and engineered for side sleepers, which I am, and the fully adjustable eye cups don't put any pressure on your eyes or lashes. I also love that it's machine washable and that they give you a bag to put it in to keep it safe. So many other silk masks that I've tried are hand wash only, and that just adds more work that I don't have time for. Manta Sleep offers a wide range of masks and accessories for any and all sleep preferences. I've got 2 huge filming lights on me right now, and I cannot see a thing. It is pitch black over here. So if you want to upgrade your sleep, check out the link below in the description and use code DIGITWITHRAVEN for 10% off your order. Queen Hetepheres was also buried with 2 armchairs. Unfortunately, their wood has completely disintegrated, so reconstructing one of them was, well, very difficult, so they could only do about like half of it. Except for the seat and the back, everything was covered in gold leaf, which helped archaeologists reconstruct the basic panels thanks to the shape that they retained. One of the chairs was decorated with these beautiful inlays of Horus in the form of a falcon standing on a palm tree with his wings outstretched, and the standards of the goddess Neith. Now, Hetep-Heres was a queen, after all, and we can't expect a queen to just be walking everywhere she went. No, sorry, not even in the afterlife, which is why, as we mentioned earlier, she was buried with a palanquin or a carrying chair. This was gilded at all the corners and decorated with geometric reliefs. The carrying poles were even bedecked with these palm finials on either end for extra luxury. It was also adjustable, meaning the seat could be pulled out so the queen could stretch her legs during her journey. I love it. Sign me up. Give me 3 of them. And of course, while she was being carried, all of those who were literate could look upon her and read on the backrest the following golden inscription. Mother of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, daughter of Horus, entrusted with the affairs of Emat, the one for whom the word was created, daughter of God, Hetep-Heres. She obviously didn't need any introduction, but she was definitely making sure that no one ever forgot how important she was. Now, of course, no collection of royal paraphernalia is complete without a baldachin, or canopy of state. The frame of this amazing canopy survives, and of course was gilded entirely in gold. The baldachin was made to be disassembled and reassembled quite quickly, so the queen could use it in multiple locations. Now imagine fine linen curtains hanging off of this canopy, perhaps framing her bed and a chair, granting her privacy, or perhaps even protecting her from insects on a hot summer night. No remains of these curtains were found, but they were likely stored in the now decomposed box that was storing this frame. Furniture is great and all, but truly one of the most spectacular items discovered in Queen Hetepheres' tomb are her silver bangles. Inside a large chest was a small gilded box containing silver bracelets inlaid with semi-precious stones like carnelian, lapis lazuli, and turquoise in the shape of butterflies. The box originally contained 20 bracelets on 2 wooden rollers, 10 for each arm, in diminishing sizes, though some of them have not survived in the archaeological record. These bracelets are a big deal because nothing like this had been found before from the Old Kingdom, and while Egypt was very rich in gold, it didn't really have many natural deposits of silver, so it had to be imported. That means for the ancient Egyptians, silver was rarer and more precious than gold, and these silver bracelets represent the wealth of the pharaoh and the royal family in the Old Kingdom. I mean, if you're going to build the biggest pyramid in the world, you best be rolling in some serious dough. What's extra cool about these bracelets is that they have led to new insights into the potential origins of the silver, because until recently, we had no idea where Egypt imported it from. A recent study on the chemical makeup of the silver identified the Cycladic Islands in Greece as the most likely location of this silver, which is just wild. It's thought that the Egyptians acquired the silver through trade from Byblos on the Lebanese coast because, at the moment, there isn't any evidence for direct relations between the Greek islands and Egypt until the 6th dynasty, so that's around 2300 BCE, which is about 300 years after Khufu. So that means we have this amazing trade network occurring and thriving much earlier than we believed. The rest of the large chest that these bracelets were found in also contained various other objects like stone and clay vessels, an ointment jar, gold and silver plates, razors, cosmetic items, and ivory bracelets. Other items included in the burial chamber were wooden caskets filled with linen and pottery, alabaster vessels, a plethora of ceramics that are of great use archaeologically for analysis and dating, and there were even 2 groups of tools, probably left by the workmen who built the tomb. And from multiple seal fragments found with Khufu's name on them, we know that he commissioned all of these furnishings for his mother. Most of these objects have been reconstructed and restored and are now on display at the new Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza, and a few smaller pieces and replicas can be found at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. While the burial chamber of Queen Hetepheres was full of wonders, there is still something very unconventional about this whole situation, which leads us to ask some tough questions and leaves probably more mysteries than solutions. For example, most Old Kingdom tombs for important people would have had a superstructure, like a mastaba or a pyramid. The Queen's tomb, though, was buried deep underground and covered up, almost like a secret. It was actually impossible for a superstructure to be built over top because the tomb is so close to the pyramids of the queens. Why is an important queen buried like this when the other ones are buried with their own pyramids. Furthermore, while Queen Hetepheres' sarcophagus was found empty, it still showed these yellowish stains inside of it, meaning that there was at one point a body inside. And it's not like the tomb was void of any human remains. There were still the mummified organs in her canopic jar. So, who removed her body from the tomb without her internal organs? And why? Let's not forget to mention that the sarcophagus and the canopic jar were placed incorrectly. The sarcophagus was on the east side of the chamber, when traditionally it should be placed on the west side, and the canopic jar is supposed to be to the south of the sarcophagus. But it wasn't. Also, because there's another question, why is Queen Hetepheres at Giza? If she was indeed Senefru's wife, then she should have been buried next to her husband Senefru's pyramid in Dashur, as is the tradition. Furthermore, contrary to the stone slab cladding that is typical of Khufu's time, the walls of her tomb were simply just carved rock. To help answer some of these riddles and solve the case, Reisner put forth the theory that Hetep-Heres survived her late husband Senefru, and then, when she eventually passed, her son Khufu buried her near Senefru in Dashur. According to him, tomb robbers might have broken into her tomb shortly after and stolen her body to get all of the rich gold and finery that was wrapped up around her mummified remains. They weren't able to steal everything though, and Khufu was likely made aware of the situation shortly after. Reisner then says that an official likely lied to Khufu about his mother's body being stolen, which seems rather far-fetched to me, and then Khufu had a secret tomb built for her near his own pyramid, to which he then moved all of her belongings. Egyptologist Mark Lehner, the man who literally wrote the book on ancient Egyptian pyramids, doesn't really buy Reisner's detective story. He says that a tomb being built at Giza would have been no secret, given how busy of a construction site it was. Plus, the lid of the sarcophagus would have been smashed if tomb robbers were indeed the ones to come in and steal the body. And the lid of the sarcophagus, as we can see, is very much intact. That means whoever opened the sarcophagus to remove the queen was skilled and did it with care. Lehner's alternative theory is that Queen Hetepheres died before the queen pyramids at Giza were completed. She might have died unexpectedly, which meant that tomb furnishings had to be prepared with haste, essentially creating an emergency grave for the queen. There is a pit that has been found just east of this burial chamber, which is called G7000X, and this pit is called G1X. Just so if you're ever looking at a map of Giza with all the archaeological designations, that's how you can find them. And Lehner thinks that G1X could be an unfinished entrance to a pyramid that was never built and would have been the completed tomb complex of Queen Hetepheres. What happened then was that probably a new tomb complex was created for the queen, and then her mummified remains were removed from this burial chamber and taken to that new complex with all new furnishings, which explains why everything was left in G7000X. But what about the canopic chest that was found? Surely something that important wouldn't just be left behind. No? Well, another potential explanation for this is that this tomb, this room, is from the 3rd dynasty, the dynasty prior to Khufu, and it was reused to temporarily store Hetep-Heres while Khufu built something more suitable for his mother. The canopic chest that was found then might be the mummified organs of someone else, and those of Queen Hetep-Heres were transferred with her body when she was moved. This would explain why the sarcophagus is both empty and in the wrong orientation to the canopic chest. All of this, though, is just pure conjecture. We don't have any concrete archaeological proof that there was meant to be another pyramid, nor that this burial chamber was used by someone else first. We don't even know if Hetep-Heres was supposed to have been buried at Dashur with Senefru, because we can't prove that they were, officially husband and wife. We sort of just assume this because seal impressions in the queen's tomb show that she had a close relationship to both Senefru and Khufu. We have absolutely no documentation or inscriptions referring to her as the king's wife, and instead, she has other titles, like Daughter of God. This evidence has been taken to suggest that Khufu's accession to the throne might not have been legitimate, which just adds further excitement and intrigue into this whole thing. Peter Yanasi seems to think so, and he suggests that Khufu was not a direct descendant of Senefru, and so therefore he traced his divine lineage through his mother's daughter of God title to claim his right to rule. If that is the case, this explains why Khufu would have buried her in Giza and not in Dashur. It's all quite confusing and exciting and mysterious, but regardless of the open-ended nature of Queen Hetepheres' burial, it is still the best preserved tomb of a queen from the Old Kingdom. And the meticulous documentation by the excavation team really shows a marked change in archaeological techniques in the early 20th century. Not to mention, the stunning craftsmanship of the jewelry and furniture are testaments to early Egyptian art with the delicate inlays and complicated decorative patterns that adorn much of her belongings. This golden tomb is a prime example that there is always more hidden beneath the surface, even in places as well documented as Giza, which was again proven in the 1950s when Khufu's solar boats were found. But that's for another video. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you liked that video, you know what to do. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. Let me know what your favorite sort of like lesser known but really cool archaeological discovery is down in the comments, because I definitely want to do more video spotlights like this. And as always, stay dirty, my friends.